Mark, are we having technical difficulties here?
You're fine, Ed. Go ahead.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Once again, this meeting of Community Board 14 is called to order on June 22nd. Now at 5:39 p.m. under the applicable statutes of New York State, the Charter of New York City, the board's bylaws, and Robert's Rules of Order. The board's policy is to encourage detailed public discussion of matters before the board at our committee meetings and at public hearings. Consequently, except by board members, there will be no public discussion at our regular monthly meetings of matters about which a public hearing or committee meeting has been held. Specific delivery requests or complaints should be brought to the attention of the district office's staff by calling the board office during regular business hours or by visiting our website anytime. Contact information is on the back. Well, it's not on the back table, so we'll eliminate that part. Other matters of civic interest may be brought before the board during our scheduled public comment period, which will begin tonight after all other business on the board's monthly meeting agenda has been concluded. No partisan political appeals or advertising of for-profit enterprises will be heard. Persons wishing to speak during the public comment period should call the board office ahead of time to pre-register. District Manager, are there any other means by which people can register to speak during the comment period?
No, the deadline is passed, but if anybody wants information posted on our website or another announcements made, they can email them to us. Anything emailed to us before the end of this meeting will be added into the minutes as an addendum.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask the board secretary to call the roll. Is the secretary on?
Ed, as in the last meetings that we did via WebEx, we're not going to do roll call just because it's a little bit unwieldy. We have a list of all of the attendees and participants, and we will take attendance thusly and put it in our minutes.
That makes sense. I just want to be certain that we do have a quorum.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sean, are you able to do a quick look at the attendees and do a count and tell us if we're at 26?
You look like you might disagree. There's attendees and participants on this.
Okay, so are you able to take a look at the list? Is there a list that you're able to look at?
Yes, we have 26 board members.
Okay, fine. So just let the chairman know so that he could declare the presence of a quorum.
Okay, I got that. It looks like we're having technical problems on here. Not a bit.
Could I intervene? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I believe someone has the YouTube feed open on their computer and it's creating reverb. If anyone has the YouTube live channel open, maybe they want to just turn it off. That would be.
Okay.
Ephraim's hand is raised.
Ephraim? Chair recognizes Ephraim Nirenberg.
How are you? Good evening. No, it's my mistake. It's fine.
Okay. So we'll move on then to the meeting agenda, starting with approval of the minutes. minutes have been distributed by email. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's been properly moved and seconded that for approval of the minutes, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposing, no? Opposing, no? Opposing, no? Hearing no, no votes, the minutes are approved. District Manager Sean Campbell.
To try to be brief, we had a district service cabinet meeting on Wednesday, June 10th, and had a lot of updates from a lot of city agencies that have been working really hard. It was, I'm always so impressed and amazed by some of my colleagues and their willingness to work hard and work together. We had great reports from DSNY, CEM, DHS, Breaking Ground, DIFTA, DOHMH, Commission on Human Rights, and bids and elected officials. And it made me feel even sadder that we're not having our annual reception this year, because I would love to be gathered with you all. And I also just always appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of some of our community partners. So since we can't do that, I did write a letter to one really outstanding agency through all of this, which has been the Department of Sanitation. And I may have even mentioned this last meeting, but they've gone well beyond the extra mile to take care of setting up for and cleaning up after the many food pantries and testing sites. And because it's quieter on our commercial street, there's a lot of illegal drop-offs, and they're still working the three shifts a day. But they've just been outstanding, and there's nothing that we've asked for that they haven't said absolutely right and been just great about it. We also, as I mentioned at our last meeting together, Irina at that time was retired, and now she has retired. Friday was her last day, and it's difficult for somebody who's been here for so long for us to not have a real formal way to say goodbye. So hopefully we'll get together later in the year. But in the meantime, if anybody wants to send a card here to the office or email to my S. Campbell account, something nice, I could toss it into a card and mail it off to her. I just wanted to offer that because some people had asked. So I'd be happy to facilitate that communication if you'd like. Phase 2, as many of you know, did begin today. And our office, just to report out to my board, is we are not moving back into open fully very swiftly. We're still waiting for some supplies. It will just be me and Anya. And so we will, we've been, the request right now is, you can open the office, but the request is to not do that unless it's absolutely necessary. And I feel like Anya and I have managed our productivity levels remotely, and to the extent that we haven't, I'll be coming into the office a couple of days a week, and certainly still have to pick up mail. And I promised Irina I'd water some plants. But I'll keep the board posted through email when we open up full-time or even full-ish time. Right now, I'll be here a couple, afternoons a week, but we will still be continuing most of our work remotely. Of course, I would yield to my board in any guidance or requests or wishes that you have about that. Please let us know, and we'll certainly take it into consideration and then speak to the chairman about it. We're still working with a lot of our bids and other businesses to assist them with information on how they reopen. Our restaurants and are going to be cafes, a lot of them. And so I was on the phone call with DOT last Friday to try to get the information sorted out. But DOT said that they are going to approve. They're going to err on the side of approving. And and only really respond if they hadn't approved to it by, it will be complaint driven. So let us know what you're seeing out there, and hopefully it's all good, enjoyable, fun. What has not been enjoyable fun, and I won't go too far down this road because we don't usually do service delivery, but I'd feel remiss if I didn't note that, yes, we have had a lot of firework complaints. And we all live here, so we know. We have had requests from community members who want to try to address the issue without calling 311 or 911. And on our website, we have added a letter for FDNY enforcement. But we also have some resources there if we want, to the extent that we as a community can handle this as a public service announcement and public service support, because it is a danger, and there have been critical injuries near our community because of fireworks. So we have posters. There's a great video that ends with the tagline, "Keep washing your hands, don't risk losing them." And we will be getting additional materials. I spoke with somebody, lieutenant from Brooklyn Borough South today, and they're going to be providing a lot of materials, posters and flyers and that sort of thing. And we'll let you know when they can be, people can pick them up from the office when I'm here. I'll try to put the word out for that. And I'm also happy to drop things off within the district. So we'll try to get the message out in a more, we're all in this together, community-oriented way. But and certainly, feel free to contact the office or handle it as you see fit, obviously within reason. But let us know if we can be helpful. And if the city should respond with another tact for this, we'll be on top of that, and we'll circulate that information as well. So that wasn't as short as I thought it was going to be. Sorry, I am done now, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Chair's report. Well, if we'd been able to hold our annual reception this year, we would, of course, have formally dedicated the Community Board 14 conference room, which has aptly been renamed the Alvin M. Burke Community Room. And I can tell you there have been amazing improvements in here in terms of technology. Sean, when I came in, showed me some of the new high-tech stuff, and I can tell you guys, you're going to be really impressed. This room has had a lot of technology and sound upgrades that will increase the quality of public hearings and committee meetings, once we can gather again. I really look forward to at the annual reception, excuse me, we do take time to welcome new members appointed by the borough president. Zakiya Khan and Michelle Brunson are this year's new appointees, and we look forward to working with them. I also want to take some thank some members actually who will be leaving the board for greater or more relaxed next chapters in their lives. Lori Nipel and Florence Valentino were veteran board members who served the board and the greater community with grace and wisdom. Jermaine Berger-Gaskin served 3 terms as a board member and as our liaison to Kings County Medical Center. Thank you all. Thank you. I also want to announce that I have appointed 2 new co-chairs for the Education, Libraries, and Cultural Affairs Committee, Steve D. Cohen and Carl Henry Cesar have agreed to lead this committee, and I thank them for stepping up, and I want to express appreciation for the years of service and leadership by Florence Valentino and Gail L. Smith, who previously chaired this committee. That wraps it up, actually, for the chair's report. Well, according to the agenda I'm looking at, we move on now to topical committees. Before we do, though, I know that we have at least one elected official present today. And I'd just like to give him an opportunity to say a few words. Cal, are you still with us?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Diego, sure.
How are you, sir? Okay, I'm going to be brief. With all the technological upgrades, I'm still using my Commodore 64 to communicate, so I'm going to do the best I can. First, again, this is our last meeting before the end of the year, and obviously we usually have our reception. I've been going to the reception, I would say probably for over 25 years, because I think I started when I was 4. So I'm going to miss it this year. I'm going to miss all you guys. And there are some great pictures hanging on the wall of me when I had more hair and none of it was gray. Ed, look around, you'll find them. Good old ones.
Yeah.
But I do want to seriously thank the board members for all their, board members of the community board are volunteers in their own communities, in their own respect, and do the work that you do before you come to the board. And I know that I know a lot of what a lot of you do. I don't know everything that all of you do, but I do want to thank you. And of course, I have to thank Sean. We communicate, I think, far more often than she wants to, but several times a week. She knows every corner of the district and every problem that's happening, frequently long before any of us do. And she's usually on it by the time we start talking about it. And I'm very grateful for how she's kept the board functioning in a real way over the last 3 months. Just a real quick update, and then I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. As some folks may know, my colleagues from Albany, Senator Simcha Felder, Assemblyman Simcha Eichenstein, and I had some important work to take care of at Colbert Park this week, and we did, and it's been restored to the people. Today, we actually have entered phase 2, so it's now actually lawfully open. We take the position that it was lawfully open last week because the governor said he leaves it to local government to decide when to open the playgrounds, and I don't see how you get more local than your councilman. So I'm very happy that Colbert Park was restored. As the chair knows, and members of the board have been around for a while, that park has seen a lot of bad days before it saw good days. And my predecessor spent a good number of years putting the money in to the Parks Department to do that rehab that in my first few months in the council, I was able to take credit for his work and cut a ribbon. And Alvin, Mr. Chairman, Emeritus was there, and it was a $4 million rehab. It is a beautiful, beautiful park. It's my childhood park. It's the park I spent thousands of hours as a kid. It's the park that my siblings and I have brought our own kids to, and it's restored to the community like all of our parks ought to be. And this just brings us to where we are in phase 2. I think people will start noticing some of our local restaurants are availing themselves of the outdoor dining. I have noticed it already myself on Avenue M. There's a very quick and easy process by which a restaurant that wishes to avail itself of outdoor dining along its frontage, we talked about it at the last meeting. It's a process where you can submit an application to the DOT. It's almost an automated process, and only if there is a problem is there a no. So I've seen some of those pop up, and I'm really, really happy because it may seem a little inconvenient to pedestrians and the like, but it's really important that we get our small businesses back up and running. The people who work there live in our neighborhoods. It's really good. So this is my pitch. If you're out and you see a business, a store, and you don't need something, but hey, why not? Stop by, buy a cup of coffee, buy a donut, buy something. We have to really do our part to push our local businesses. They're suffering immensely. Their rent didn't go away, their taxes didn't go away, and they need our help. And we have to do the best we can. Please don't buy online if you don't have to. That's my pitch. Go local. We're here, we're back, the neighborhood is back, and we have to build it up. We have great shopping districts, Coney Island Avenue, Cortelia Road's not in my district, but it's in the board. Ditmas, so many places where you can actually buy. Come to my Avenue M, Avenue J. do what you can. I'm not going to go on and on because everybody on this board knows I love Community Board 14. I love every edge of it. Been on this board for 18 years. I am not going away until you throw me off. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it back to you with my wishes to everybody for a beautiful, wonderful summer. God willing, when we meet in September, I would love to be able to see each of you in person. If that's not what the stars hold for us, then we'll do it this way. But everybody here knows how to find me if you need me. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any other officials online right now? If so, please identify yourself. Okay, hearing no one.
I'm not an elected official, but I'm a representative of an elected official. It's Penny Ringel from the Mayor's Office.
Okay, Penny, sure.
Just hello, just saying hello and listening in, and I will write down all the complaints, even though Sean sends it to me as it happens. So Sean, good job.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, so we'll move on to topical committee reports, starting with youth services.
Let's go back to youth services. I think we need to get Jonathan Judge unmuted, and Dwayne isn't on right now.
I got it. Jonathan's unmuted now.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. No particular report at the moment, Mr. Chair, but there is a conversation which I'll let Brian talk about in the Public Safety Committee report that he'll give, where we're trying to coordinate among the committee chairs a youth council discussion. So I'm looking forward to that conversation that I think we'll be having, throughout the summer to put something together. But I'll let Brian talk more about that. Otherwise, likewise, as everyone's saying, have a wonderful summer, and hopefully we'll be able to see each other when we all get back from the summer. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Please mute your microphones. Thank you. Community environment. Unmute your microphone, and if co-chairs are present.
Hi, I'm the co-chair, and we have not had a meeting, so there's nothing to discuss at this time.
All right, thank you. Who was speaking?
That was Nina Subgear, and this is Sean now. May I chime in real quickly on this one?
Of course.
I will bring this directly to Donald Loggins and Nina Subgear by email, but kind of want to even get ahead a little bit because I was on a Prospect Park Alliance committee, a ComCon meeting, and there is a request from the parks. We are still doing our budget request this year, and the one thing that the Alliance was hoping to get community board support on is funding for the Shirley Chisholm Center, and I think. It's never been more poignant than now to support that. And so I will draft up a letter on behalf of the committee and share it with the chairs, but just wanted to put it before the board, before it goes out, that I would hope that the board would want to support the Park Alliance's request for that funding. They have most of it, so it's only another $3.5 million.
Right.
Sure, thank you.
Sean.
Let me know how to become involved with that.
Okay, thank you. Human Services. With the co-chairs, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, Mr. Co-Chair. Joanne Brown here, Co-Chair, Human Services Committee. I do have a report.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. On June 9th, we had a meeting of the Human Services Committee and the CB14 Census 2020 Complete Count Committee Task Force. It took place on June 9th at 5:30 in the evening via WebEx. And of course, our mission was to report on our efforts to make Brooklyn count 100%. I just have an update with regards to how our district is doing well with the updated information on the census count. Overall, in the borough, Kings County's response rate is 49.5% as of last night, slightly up from the last time that I reported to this board and my committee. We still have some troublesome areas with reporting. They got slightly better, so now it's sort of a light orange as opposed to a darker orange. Again, the area of Church Avenue to the Junction and from Flatbush Avenue to Bedford, that area going to the south is at 44.5% to 50%. So if you have partners in that area, we still need to get information out to our neighbors to get them to respond to the census. Another area that could use some support is in Midwood, looking from Avenue I to Avenue M, from Bedford Avenue over to East 22nd Street, and that would be the east part of Midwood, and then the west part from Avenue J to Avenue N, as in Nancy, from the center of Midwood over to Coney Island Avenue. So if we can get the word out in those areas and do a big push, that area is still hovering at 50%. At the Human Services Committee, I gave a little shout out to one area that's doing great up in the northern part of the district, the area of Woodruff Avenue and Crook Avenue from Ocean over to the park. They're at 64.7%, so they're beating everyone in the district. If you want to be like them, let's rally the neighbors. And lastly, also in the Ditmas Park area from Cortillia Road to Foster, the streets of Stratford and Westminster, they're also doing great. They're at 62.5%. I also attended the meeting of the Brooklyn Complete Count Committee with the borough president. One big takeaway from that meeting was the phone banking efforts of the New York Census. And this is not the United States Bureau, but this is the New York City effort, and they have a phone banking I believe in Brooklyn it is, let me just take a look at this. In Brooklyn, it's every Tuesdays between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. It's really, really easy to sign up to use the application, and you can spend 2 hours of your time calling your neighbors, reminding them to fill out the census. At our overall meeting for the Human Services Committee, we were Amy Michael from the Brooklyn Public Library presented and let us know what their continuing efforts from home and remotely. They're still working with children, and they have lots of education going out using their budget wisely. And we also heard from the U.S. Census. They just updated us on the timeline, which let me just give you a quick reminder of the timeline. Self-response is still going until October 2020, the end of the month. Field offices are starting to open this month. If you have any available space and are willing to host a training, the Bureau would much appreciate the space. They have lots of newly hired temporary employees who they're going to send out to do the non-response collection. So that's about it for my report. Thank you so much for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Joanne. Before we move on, Sean just reminded me that the chair of the Kings County Democratic Party, Assemblymember Rodney Spichat, has just joined us, and I'd like to give her every opportunity to address the board. Assemblymember Spichat.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Hi, how you doing, Community Board 14? How you doing, Mr. Chair? Thank you for allowing me to quickly speak. And District Manager Sean, how are you? And the whole board. It's great to see you, and I believe I see, I think I saw Councilmember Carmen Yeager. I don't know if he left, but oh, I see him. Hey, how are you? I just quickly wanted to first want to wish everybody well. I know this is the last meeting. I want to wish everybody a great summer as we're trying to figure out how we're going to be reopening the city. But I wanted to really touch base on election tomorrow. Just so you know, we're trying to accommodate the train schedule. As you know, the train starts at 5 a.m. and our poll workers need to be at the poll site by 5 a.m. So we have been fighting with, well, not fighting. We've been working with the MTA and as well as the governor's office. We were hoping to get an executive order to allow a 4 a.m. start in the MTA so that our poll workers will get there in time to open the poll sites at 6 a.m. So we might have a little chaos tomorrow. I know there are a number of people who said they didn't receive their ballots. So we're trying to work all issues. I would suggest that if you're looking to go and vote, maybe you want to start at 7 in the event that there will be a delay in setting up the poll site. That's very important. I wouldn't want anybody to be waiting for a whole hour outside while we're setting up. As you know, the social distancing PPEs will be implemented as well. When you walk in, they'll give you a sanitizer wipe. You have an individual pen, and you can go in and look for, you can vote. Also know that there were a number of EDs, election districts, that were moved. Why? Because all the nursing homes and all the senior homes, anything senior were eliminated from this election's poll site. And the reason why is obvious, because of COVID. There were some other issues in terms of overcrowding because we need to implement social distancing. So I would suggest that each and every one of you look to see if your poll site has been relocated. Okay. And then lastly, if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me at my office, 718-940-0428. We are doing a number of mass distribution events. If your organization or your building or your faith-based institution or non-faith-based institution, whatever it is, if you're interested in doing a mass distribution event, please contact my office. The governor had sent us thousands of masks, and it's to do events with all of you. So, maybe we could do a Community 14 event. I know all of you would be on leave, but maybe we could do a Community Board 14 mass distribution event. But again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, I should say, for allowing me to speak. And I will see if I can quickly put in some information. I'll type in some information on the election. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Assembly Member. Are there any other elected officials online right now? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on with our agenda. Transportation Committee. Committee co-chairs, please unmute your mic.
Ed, this is Glenn Wolin. I have my hand up. I have a couple of questions, if I might.
Okay, please go ahead, Glenn.
My first question is for Joanne. She said Brooklyn is doing about 49% so far. I'd like to know how that compares to the rest of the country. Are we doing reasonably well or not? And also for Rodney's Bichat, the masks that are being distributed, what quality masks are those? Thank you. I'm muting now.
Okay.
Hi, Glenn. Joanne Brown here. Let me just quickly look up that information on the hard to count map, and I'll put the information in the chat. Okay, I'll let you know how King County is doing versus the United States. Okay.
In terms of the masks, Glenn, by the way, we do have some cloth masks, and I don't know if you've seen them. They're black. They're not the greatest. I'm not so crazy about them. And we have the standard blue masks. They're not N95. I will text my staff and see if there are any above. Maybe they're KN95, but we've been mostly getting the standard blue masks.
Glenn, can we ask you to lower your hand, please?
Just a moment, please. If you're not speaking, please mute your mic. We're hearing a lot of background noise.
Ephraim, your hand is still up. Is that from before?
Ephraim?
It's from before.
Can you lower it, please?
No problem. I'm trying to get out of
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Ed, you can move us to the next item on the agenda, please.
Okay, I'm having a little trouble with my video here. Okay, public safety.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members. As it's been stated earlier, wishing everyone a very, very happy summer and hope all is well with everyone with all the social distancing that's been taking place. The Public Safety Committee met on Wednesday at 5:30, last week Wednesday at 5:30, and three major items or three takeaways came up. The first was the DA's office made a presentation on some of the services they have been providing throughout this period of social distancing, and provided us with a number of resource numbers we can call in the event that we need their services. I believe some of that information may have gone out via email, but happy to have it reshared. But they made a presentation on Wednesday just about what they've been doing while we've been quarantined. The second thing that came up during our meeting was a letter that was penned by the borough president requesting that the mayor put into effect a executive order and asking for community board input on that executive order. The executive order, in short, asks is that the community board have some oversight and input on the selection of precinct command officers and have veto power if we don't agree with the commanding officer. The spirit of the letter, I think, from the borough president was looking at civic participation from the community members so that we have more input into that. The letter, we do owe a response back to the borough president's office on whether or not we believe that we want to sign on to that notion. I believe Sean sent around the letter last week, Thursday, to the entire board to read ahead of this meeting. But the spirit of the letter is that community board members would have some input in the selection of the commanding officer in their precincts, which would be the 7th precinct for Community Board 14. The last item that we discussed was how do we infuse greater participation from younger members of our community in our community board, similar to what Joanne did with the census, which is essentially having a task force that can examine from the committee chairs how we can solicit greater input from younger people on the community boards. We believe that their civic engagement is critical to our public safety, and we want to make sure their voices are not drowned out and are included in some of the discourse. So there's some way to channel their energy and their ideas. So those are the three things that came up during our public safety meeting on Wednesday.
Nina has her hand up.
Nina?
Well, this actually goes back previously to the question regarding the masks. And if I may, as a medical professional, just clarify that unless you are actively working with contagious individuals, you do not and should not wear an N95 because they should be fitted in order to be effective. And the soft masks, cotton masks, etc., prevent the spray that comes out of our mouths when we talk, speak, sneeze, etc., from going out into the atmosphere. And if we are, say, asymptomatic but infectious, preventing our potentially infecting other people around us.
Thank you, Nina. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Borough President's request for a board sign-on to his letter requires a vote of the board.
I don't know if that's, I don't know that the Borough President has described to boards how they would decide whether or not they're signing on. It was my understanding that the Public Safety Committee, however, did want to present it to the board for discussion and vote or consensus. I'll defer back to the chair on whether it's, which one of those.
Thank you, District Manager. Definitely wanted to make sure the board was aware of it, and I'll throw it out to the board for discussion. We did not have enough members of the Public Safety Committee on the call on Wednesday for us to make a determination on how we should respond. So definitely wanted to give the board an opportunity to hear about it and to provide some discussion on it.
Okay.
Glenn has his hand up.
Glenn, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to comment on this letter. I have read it through quite thoroughly, and I have a couple of comments. First, I'd like to start off by saying that I have tremendous respect for the police. Anyone who's willing to risk their lives for me and my family gets my vote. But we do know that there are a small number of police officers who probably should not be on the board, be working. And this letter, to me, is not any good. It has no teeth. It's simply setting up a situation like we did in the 70s with the Board of Education, where we put a bunch of people kind of in the mix that weren't actually experts, didn't know anything about education. Well, this is a similar kind of thing. I would like to. Yes.
You heard Mendel's Glenn, excuse me, let me interrupt you once more. If you're not speaking, please mute your mic because we're hearing a lot of background. Please mute your mic if you're not speaking.
I think I fixed that one. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that what he's proposing doesn't really hold anybody accountable. It's just a way of getting people involved who have no expertise in policing. Is it possible to get my picture up so everyone can see it? Because I have something I want to display for everybody. Yvette Clarke came up with some ideas that I think would go much further in terms of making a difference for those overly aggressive police officers or racist police officers, to hold them accountable if they act inappropriately. So I still don't see my picture up here. Is there any way of doing that?
Glenn, it's there in other people's computers. People can see you. You're right in the center of my screen.
All right, I am. Okay, so let's see if I can, I don't know, is this legible? Can you read this?
I can't read it.
All right, so I'll just synopsize it, but this is what Yvette Clarke came up with. 4 things. It's called Justice and Policing Act, which includes increases fairness and transparency in law enforcement with a national police misconduct registry, elimination of the cooling off period so that if a police officer does something possibly wrong, they have to answer questions right away, not 2 weeks later. Police Accountability Act, giving the Justice Department jurisdiction to bring criminal charges, including murder, against officers who kill civilians in the line of duty if the state fails to do so. And finally, the Stop Militarizing Law Enforcement Act, stop states and local law enforcement agencies from accessing the Department of Defense's supplies. Now, there's a little more than that, but something along those lines, which actually holds bad actors accountable, makes much more sense than putting a bunch of civilians who know nothing about policing in the mix. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much. I'm now going to mute.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may be recognized.
Judge Ed.
You hear me, Ed? Okay, all right. So, I just hear a lot of background noise, and I'm just curious what it is. Okay, very good.
Use your microphone.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. Okay, that sounds much better. Okay, so thank you. So I have some thoughts here. First, I do want to commend the Borough President, Borough President Eric Adams, for coming up with innovative ways to address the concern we have about policing, about making sure Black Lives Matter, making sure that policing is a just and equitable act of community public safety for everybody. So I really do appreciate the Borough President for coming up with these ideas and then engaging our board in the discussion. I read the letter thoroughly, and I share some of my colleagues' concerns that he expressed, Mr. Rowland, with regard to how this would work. And honestly, I have some assumptions, but I feel that the language is very vague on how this would work. I'm equally concerned about exactly how accountability will be accomplished if we're putting the community board in the mix of it, along with as it said in the letter, community board leaders, community council leaders, other elected officials to vet and then have the ability to veto a person who is, being considered for a commanding officer role at a precinct from being in consideration. And I'm wondering a few things about that. How does that work? Does that work such that our board is going to be given the resources to look at personnel files so that our representatives in that discussion, which could be the board chair, might be the district manager, we don't really know, that hasn't been fleshed out, will they be well informed so that they could be accountable to our board, that they've made good choices based on our policies and values for our community and being a representative voice that way? How does this also affect the role of the community board if something weren't to go right? Would we then be held accountable to the public in a personnel action that, quite frankly, and I agree with my colleague, are we really the right people to make that decision to veto someone from consideration? When our community board role is advisory on purpose, our job is to be the overseer, to be the ones who are handling complaints, who are there to make sure city government, no matter who's placed in the role, is being held accountable, is working with the community to solve problems and to deliver the city services that we depend on in an equitable and just fashion, no matter what service it is, but particularly for law enforcement. And I worry about the institution of the community board if we now start having a say in who gets these positions. How does that politicize the board? What does the structure look like for us to be able to make these decisions so that the public has, if anything, more faith in the institution of city government and law enforcement, that it's going to do the right thing by everybody and not create new opportunities to sort of pass the buck from those who should be in charge of doing the right thing. And that goes all the way up to the mayor's office, down throughout the chain of command in NYPD. So I think my recommendation would be, I would like to move to postpone consideration of agreeing to this letter. And so I am making this motion up until whatever point in time, perhaps the borough president's office can provide us with a little more detail about how this would work. So then we can evaluate the proposed reform, which I think we do need meaningful reform. to gain the trust of community, of police, to work together and in a way that works for everybody. I do think this is a good thing, but I would move that we postpone consideration of endorsing the letter until the Borough President's office could give us more details on how this plan would work, so then we could properly evaluate the factors that go into this and make sure this not only protects the role of the community board in its oversight and its accountability and its day-to-day service delivery role as an independent entity in city government, but also that it's not going to shield those who really do have to be responsible for systemic issues regarding race and police abuse of authority and excessive force, making sure that we don't produce barriers that then have the community blame the community board for things that go wrong because we've sided or didn't side with someone, versus sort of leaving that in the correct purview of NYPD and the mayor's office to respond to those concerns, which is their primary responsibility, and for us to facilitate those conversations with the community. So, Mr. Chair, I would like to make that motion to postpone with a request that the Borough President's office would provide us with more details about what this plan would look like if implemented.
Thank you, Jonathan. So a motion is on the floor. I think we all heard what the motion is. Is there any further discussion on this?
Speak, if I may. It's Joe Dweck.
Of course. Sure.
We are entering into a position which we have as Glenn had said, we have absolutely no expertise in. None. Other than Ed Powell and myself, who have a very long history with this, we can't even begin to appreciate the millions of facets that these commanders have to deal with, nor can we know who is prepared to bring in and who is not prepared to bring in. We have no knowledge whatsoever of other people. This is an enormous, enormous task when somebody is in charge of 300 or 400 24 hours a day, cops 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with gang units, drug units, narcotics, undercover. There's just so many issues that we cannot evaluate, and we're not prepared to evaluate. To have a community input for that is just I can't see it, very, 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 very frankly. So I certainly am in the camp not to approve this or to delay it at the best, at least.
So just because I am trying to take notes for minutes, was that seconding the motion?
Yes, or to shelve it, frankly.
But I think there's already one motion on the table, so you couldn't really make another motion. So are you seconding the motion? Because there's still a motion on the table.
The motion, I believe, is to shelve it, is it not?
Mr. Chair, if I may just clarify, yeah, my intention was to postpone consideration of endorsing the plan until at least we've had a chance to review a more detailed plan from the Borough President about this, what this would look like. And then at that point, we can decide whether or not how to go about considering it with greater details provided to us to then decide if we would want to endorse it.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, Glenn Wolin. I think this motion was premature. We was trying to have a discussion on this letter, and long before the discussion got off the ground, a motion was proposed. It's premature. We're not ready to vote on a motion. And this is just because Jonathan knows the rules of order, but this is still incorrect. We should have the full discussion and then decide what we want to do about it. All right.
Nicole has her hand up.
Anybody else with their hands up?
Nicole has her hand up.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if my baby starts crying. So just regarding Jonathan's motion, but also just as part of the general discussion, a few comments regarding Jonathan's point around timing. Honestly, I feel like if you get the details worked out and revise it, and like I agree with you, it doesn't have a lot of teeth, but if we send this in 2 months, it's totally meaningless. And like, you might as well not send the letter at all. So I do feel like the timing is really important. And I think it's actually a really interesting idea and a great opportunity to have the community board be part of a really important process in a way they haven't been before. I appreciate and respect the complexity of those decisions, but I just feel like it would be an opportunity missed and that the details could be worked out later. I say that recognizing my gross inexperience in community things. Regarding the comment about the community board's expertise and our ability to weigh in on something, I strongly disagree with that. When you're participating in a job interview or a scholarship panel or even voting for an elected official, you don't have to be an expert in that person's ability to do their job. You can evaluate their ability to do the part of their job that affects you or has to do with their relationship with you. So I do think, as again, respect for both of the comments made so far, but I think the timing is important. It's an opportunity for us to be involved in something important. And I do think that we don't have to be like experts in how the police work to weigh in. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any additional discussion? Are there any hands up?
I don't see any other hands up.
Okay.
Wait, now there's one. Deborah?
Oh, okay. Deborah?
Yeah, I think that this is something that we should take a look at. So I would agree with Jonathan and Nicole so that we can actually have that opportunity to look at it before we say that we're not qualified to look at it, to be a part of it. So I think it would be also a missed opportunity for all of us. So I support Jonathan's motion. Did you hear me?
So, yes, now, is that a second of Jonathan's motion?
Yeah, so it will be a second to Jonathan's motion.
Okay. All right, Ben.
Glenn's hand is up.
And seconded. So we'll move on to a vote.
Can I make one last comment, please, Mr. Chair?
One last comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, the nature of what is being proposed has simply to do with who was hired as the CO for, and in this case, the 70th precinct, but citywide, the precinct commanders. Now, if one of the police officers does the wrong thing, uses a chokehold, or does something inappropriate, there is nothing else for us to do. This letter doesn't give any teeth to dealing with a specific problem. That's my main objection to it. So we may or may not be any good at putting a precinct commander in. I suspect we would not be very good because we don't know the hundreds of things that you need to know about who a good precinct commander is. But my main objection is if someone does something wrong, there is no way to hold them accountable based on this letter. All right, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Okay, it seems that what I'm hearing is that that just we need more clarification on what the board president is proposing. Before we can make an informed decision. So, I mean, is there anyone who is not in agreement with that statement?
Mr. Chairman, you have three hands raised, Ann, Deborah, and Billy. So, Ann?
Ann?
Yes, hi. So, in the interest of putting this together, there are a few things that were touched on and not touched on. One is that the role of the community board is advisory. So the liability issues are of concern. And I would personally like to see them better scoped out. That's one. And And I think that that's a really big consideration. So I understand that this is an issue that is urgent and relevant. I think it begs further explanation. So that's one. And so clarification from Borough Hall if we wish to move forward on it. I personally intend to abstain, all right? That's my opinion. But the second issue is there is no review. So somebody could come in with an excellent CV, and we agree with them. But in the event that they take actions or that they don't counsel their police in accordance with respectful policing, CPR that we see on the sides of their vehicles, I think that we need to have the ability as community board and community boards plural, that we need to have the ability to review it. And that's what I'd like to put in. All right, thank you.
Billy?
Hi. Thanks for what has become a very robust discussion. It's definitely got the wheels in my head turning. I just wanted to say a couple quick things. I think it was Glenn's concerns about this particular proposal not being the be-all, end-all of sort of policing reform, but I don't think it's mutually exclusive to any of the reforms proposed by Congressmember Clark or other folks, and I don't think that in and of itself is a reason to oppose the idea. The second thing I want to just say is that while I respect that policing, of course, takes expertise and specialized knowledge, frankly, if NYPD was able to operate independently and sort of make leadership and systemic decisions on their own in good faith and with the holistic community concerns in mind, we wouldn't be having this discussion in the first place. Obviously, there's a need for more community input. There's a need for building deeper relationships and changing those decision-making processes. So the idea that it's sort of impossible for us to know or make an informed decision, I strongly agree with, I think it was Nicole's point that, we vote for elected officials. We as a community board vote on a wide variety of complex policy and planning issues all the time. And I know the majority of us are not experts, quote unquote, on all those issues. So it's not clear to me why this would fundamentally be different. I also think when we vote on those issues, if there are flaws in them, we're not held legally liable. If the community board votes on a transportation planning or a bike or a bus lane, it doesn't then become, if it's not perfectly implemented at first, the community board's quote unquote fault. I don't think we should shy away from the opportunity to be engaged more deeply in these decision-making processes. I think they're incredibly important. I think it's an opportunity for the community and the police department and the precinct to engage meaningfully. I certainly agree with the critique that if we're going to have an input on this decision, I think that is totally a given. There needs to be some sort of process in place that determines exactly what about an individual officer or candidate's qualifications and history is given to us, what is made public. And that is sort of what jumps out to me as the most immediate concern. But on the whole, I think the idea, even in its sort of ambiguous or flawed articulation, is fundamentally a good one.
Jonathan has his hand up.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify the point of my motion because I think it addresses what everybody's talking about. Namely that even in just hearing Mr. Richling and hearing other people talk about the urgency of doing something, that's fine. We can get the details from the borough president as soon as they come in. We have the committee of the whole enabled to convene the board at whatever public meeting notice requirement we need to. If we want to take action in the next week and a half after receiving details that we can review, so we can say, yes, to Mr. Richling's point, that this is the process for handling it, and this is the information will be provided so we can weigh in on it. Or being able to say, well, you know what, just like our our special permit process, where our guidelines are keeping the character of the community and weighing in on that. Maybe there's a certain guideline for how we get involved here. Whatever those details are, we don't have anything really right now to wholeheartedly endorse an executive order that the mayor would have to agree to in order to implement a process that has not been spelled out for us. So the only point in tabling is tabling it until such time, which could be in the next 2 days for all we know, that the borough president's office or anybody else that's working on this plan can provide us with the details to review in earnest, so then we can make a conscientious decision in the time that we're in now, within the next week or two if we have to, but we'll have the details to review, so that way, also, what if it doesn't go far enough? What if whatever we're looking to do in such a process, what if it doesn't go far enough? What if there's something we need to weigh in on and say, listen, if this is included here, we think this does an even better job to accomplish what the borough president wants to accomplish. We need to be able to have that conversation. And right now, while we endorse the notion of it, because I think we all agree that reforms are due and that we should be pursuing them, we just don't really know exactly what this would look like. And we want to make sure we don't do harm in a different way. We want to make sure we don't do something that makes another problem pop up because we're in a rush to make things fair for everyone. You know, justice, unfortunately, is slow. But when justice comes, it has to be resolute. And that's something that our community board and the community board as an institution is meant to do. So, again, to just wrap up, I'm not saying that we put this off till September. I'm not saying we don't seize the moment. The motion to table, which is what we're discussing at this point, is simply to say as soon as the borough president provides us with more details for us to consider, so we can truly weigh and discuss the merits of the plan in its entirety that we would want the mayor to implement by executive order, that then we'll discuss it. And that means we have a meeting in a week from now, then let's have a meeting in a week from now using the committee of the whole. So again, none of that precludes anything. I'm just saying, and I think a lot of us are feeling that we just need more detail before we can give our wholehearted endorsement to whatever it's trying to accomplish.
Ann has her hand up.
Thank you, John. Who has their hand up now?
Ann?
Ann, please go on.
And you're muted.
I'm very sorry. Am I recognized?
Yes.
Okay. So we're now looking to possibly table this until the next meeting, which is the committee of the whole. So then there's less input, or you're saying convene a special meeting? Thank you.
John, clarify your motion.
From a technical perspective, because the board is in session during July and August, is not in session rather, we had authorized the committee of the whole. So essentially the full board can meet and it can take action, which then would have to be formally ratified in September. But for all intents and purposes, we would treat it as the action of the board while it was legitimately in session. So this is why we don't have a regular meeting in July and August. And if we were to wait till September to Ms. Levinson and Gulow's point, and to other people's point that we're not taking advantage of the momentum in the moment to make meaningful change happen. So we don't have to wait till September is the point. We can invoke the committee of the whole at the call of the board chair in order to accomplish a meeting on this very specific point so we can have a discussion and a vote on it, or really, quite frankly, make whatever decision makes the most sense at that point in time. And that can happen anytime after this meeting. It could happen 3 days from now, 3 weeks from now. Once we have more details to operate from, there's really no reason, if we really care about this as a board, that we wouldn't convene a meeting, in my opinion, although that's up to the chair of the board, to have the discussion in earnest with more details in front of us. So again, that's the only caveat, and that's the reason why the proposal is we can use the committee of the whole in order to consider this much sooner than September.
John, would your motion include requesting that more clarity from the president?
Mr. Chair, yes, my motion was to postpone consideration until we got the information from the borough president's office with more detail. And that point, it would be up to, I think, the discretion of the chair to call a meeting once we have that information, so the more detailed plan can be disseminated for consideration.
Okay, thank you, John. Is everyone clear on the motion?
Second the motion, Joe Dweck.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there again, any further discussion before we vote?
Yeah, Chair, may I be recognized? It's Michael Cedillo.
Sure, go on, Michael. Sure.
Hi, Jonathan, I think I understand where you're coming from. I think it presupposes a lot of things. One, that we will actually hear more details from the Borough President's office, and also that we would actually have a say in the fleshing out of those details. This doesn't strike me as all that controversial or controversial enough to warrant more time. It just seems like we're asking for a more democratic process in the nomination and the selection process of commanding officers who serve our community. Seems to me pretty squarely within our bounds as a community board, and something that would be responsive and is appropriately responsive to the moment. I would much rather say we approve it now and then work on the details as they come out. As I just don't think putting a pause will put enough pressure on the Borough President's office to require additional details. Hear your point, Joe, earlier. Although I learned zoning in this community award process, which I had no idea about before, I think I can, reasonably have some input into the selection of commanding officers, or at least be one of the says in the democratic process of appointing commanding officers. So I would prefer to table, or I don't know what the correct Robert's rules are, Chair. But what I would like to do is actually vote on the actual motion and move forward with the Borough President's recommendation on behalf of this community board.
Okay, Michael.
Ed,
certainly have the opportunity. You certainly have the opportunity to vote yay or nay on the motion, and this is a very lively discussion. It's well warranted and much appreciated. However, we do need to kind of wrap it up. So if there is any other discussion, please make it short. Anybody else?
Glenn has his hand up.
Please, go on.
Yeah, just very quick. I do not see this as meaningful change. Anything that does not include some type of teeth in it to hold accountable anyone who does the wrong thing is not meaningful change. And that's why I am opposed to the letter. So I'm going to vote no to tabling it so we can get to actually, hopefully, voting on whether or not we approve the letter. Thank you.
Say something, please.
Go on, Joe.
A couple of things. First, I think we're mixing metaphors here. Firstly, in the selection of let me backtrack. I'm sorry. If there is malfeasance of an officer, there are procedures completely in place for them here in Brooklyn, as well as obviously the city as a whole, and it is out of the hands of the commander. It is not in the hands of the commander of the precinct. That's number one. They have IAB. You have so many portions that manage this, and the commander is not. I repeat, is not at all involved in that prosecution or even in anything at all about it. B, when you are selecting a commander, and here in the 7-0 precinct, we have been extremely, I want to be clear that we have the commander has no say in discipline of an officer. B, the selection of a commander, and I've been involved in large business chains where you have 7-0 precinct is maybe the premier precinct in the city. It is an extremely busy precinct. It has a large crime problems. It has a large gang problem. It has a large stolen, a zillion things involved. What you do is you don't put a rookie captain in this precinct. You see how they have responded in other precincts where they have to go down to CompStat. They have to respond. You have to see how they have managed hundreds of policemen in the past before you put them in a top precinct like ours. There's so much involved with that. And yes, I agree that we did not get a good format of what we're going to be doing. However, it's extremely, extremely difficult, and I think that we're missing the point of managing people or prosecuting a bad apple. Those are two different things.
Chair, if I may.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
30 seconds, if you don't mind, Chair. I apologize. I'll just go in quickly. To Glenn's point, agreed, this doesn't have the most teeth of any reform I've seen. I've seen much more significant reforms. I would be happy to draft something up with you if you want to offer something with more teeth. I don't think that, as I think Billy said, that would preclude us from being able to sign on to this. If anything, that might give us momentum as a board to advocate for additional reforms. And to Joe, appreciate the lesson. I do know very little about the commanding officer role, but I do know that I think they're in charge of setting the culture of the precinct, and that seems to be just as important as being able to implement accountability measures. I'm not suggesting that me as a board will go find a rookie who's never had a job in law enforcement and putting them in. I'm just saying, as a board, we should have some say as to who is setting the culture for the folks who are in charge of protecting and serving our community.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to have to cut you off there. We have to wrap it up. We have to go on and put it to a vote. I again appreciate everyone's input.
Ed, I'm sorry to interrupt because I know we have to move it along. But is there? I know Gail Smith has been emailing that she's on the line and has been trying to chime in on this since the beginning of the conversation. Mark, if there's a way to identify which caller that is and unmute her, let's do that. And otherwise, let's be done.
Thank you, Sean.
Both phone numbers don't have names associated with it, but both phone calls right now are unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Gail. Yes.
Whoa. I have been trying unmuted for quite a while, but I think this was a very robust and necessary dialogue. However, I'm a little bit troubled because I do feel that we do need to discuss this and come up with ways to be more proactive and be more involved as community leaders. So I am totally against scuttling it. But I do think that we need to meet, come up with questions that we want to ask of the borough president, and then we need to make some decisions. We can't just say, be cavalier and scuttle this. I'm just totally against that.
Okay, Gail. Thank you for that input.
And this is Deborah. Can I just say one thing? And it's going to be very quick. My thing is the commanding officer, he sets the tone for the precinct. So therefore, I think we should be involved in that. Yes, he doesn't have any input on hiring or firing of an officer, but he sets the tone for the precinct. So yes, I would say let's table it and we go from there.
This is Gail again. If we please, and I do agree that we need to table, but I think we also need to come up with a definitive time that we will be moving forward on it, and it should be as soon as possible that we can send our questions and then do another virtual meeting to make some decisions.
Okay. the fact is that there is a motion on the floor. And, we're going to have to vote on that motion. Now, there are, of course, as you've heard, varying opinions and varying ideas and suggestions. But, following parliamentary practice, we are going to have to deal with the motion that is currently on the floor. So,
can you re-articulate what the motion is, Mr. Chair? Because there seem to have been different additions and subtractions to it.
I'm going to ask Jonathan Judge to restate the motion, and we'll proceed to a vote. John?
Hi, Mr. Chair. Okay, the motion is to postpone consideration until the Borough President's Office provides us with more details for the plan that he is looking for our endorsement on, and then we can consider it at that time that we receive the response from the Borough President's Office. And if I may, if acceptable to the chair, maybe to just flesh out the details of that, maybe by end of day Wednesday, we could email Sean, the district manager's office, with questions we have. And then maybe we could say that we will convene a committee of the whole within 72 hours of a response in order to consider the borough president's response once we receive it. So there's accountability and consideration. Is that acceptable?
Okay. Just a point of clarification. Should we not try to send questions to the borough president, instead of just saying to him, please give us more information? Shouldn't we let him know what concerns or questions we have relative to the letter?
Well, Mrs. Smith, I think John's motion included that that we submit our questions to the board office, and that would form, communicate to the borough president, requesting those things that that have been submitted.
All right, so then we will be doing that first, because it appeared as if we were just going to send a letter initially to the borough president just saying we need him to provide more clarity. But from what I'm hearing now is that we will first be getting our questions together prior to responding to the borough president, correct?
That is my understanding of the motion.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to a vote. The motion, I believe, has been somewhat amended, so I believe it will require another second. Is there anyone who would like to second the standing motion?
I second it, Steve Cohen.
Okay. So it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, let it be known by saying no or raising your hand.
No.
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 Okay, the ayes won. Let's go.
From what I was able to count, it sounded like 10 yes votes and 6 no votes.
Was my vote included, Sean?
I just made a chit when somebody said aye. I just made a chit. I did not write down names because I don't know whose name attaches to its voice. So I just took a chit.
This is Gail Smith and I.
Wait. I gotta go to the limit. Hold on.
Okay. We're having the same problem. Unless you are speaking, please mute your microphone. Okay. It appears from the district manager's count that the ayes have it.
But there are 10 people who didn't vote. We have a quorum, so that means we need 26 votes. 10 people who didn't vote means they're abstaining, which means that the ayes do not have it.
Glenn, you can't presuppose just because I just had the person has abstained. So the board can either do this. If everybody knows how to use the icon in the bottom of their panelist screen to raise their hand, they could do that. Or Ed, you're going to have to proceed with a roll call vote.
But before you do that, there are hands up. So if you're going to do that, everybody has to lower their hand first. Alvin, Ann, Deborah, Florencia.
Alvin and Deborah, you still have hands up. Okay. Now, Ed, go ahead and ask for the ayes or the yeses, please.
First, I'm going to ask if everyone knows how to raise your hand. How to raise your hand, not like this, but do you know how to raise your hand? If you don't, say no.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point of personal privilege. I think we should just do a roll call vote and go down the list of attendees by board member. I think it'll just be fair. And again, point of order that we do not need an absolute majority because this is not final action of the board. This is a procedural motion just to wait until we get more information from the borough president's office in order to act immediately after getting that information. So we don't need an absolute majority of the board membership. And so I would like to just demand an individual roll call vote by voice.
Thank you, John. Thank you. That makes sense to me as well. So let's go with the roll call vote. Is the secretary present?
No.
Third Vice Chair Joe Dweck.
Oh, but I don't have a list of people to speak to.
I'm happy to jump in and play this role for this one time.
Okay.
I have the list in front of me. Joe Dweck, the first vote. Joe, yes or no?
Aye.
Abe Treff?
Everybody, you need to unmute yourself to vote.
When your name is called, unmute yourself to vote.
Abe Treff? Abe, yes or no?
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, can hear you. Alvin Burke?
Yes.
Ann Godette? No. Arden Prasad?
Abstain.
Baza Ruhi? Baza?
Yes. I voted yes.
Billy Richling?
I vote no against the motion.
Brian Cunningham?
I vote no.
Deborah Valentine?
Vote yes.
Ed Sen?
No.
Ed Powell,
Yes.
Ephraim Nuremberg,
Yes.
Florencia,
Yes.
Glenn Woolen,
No.
Gregory Alvarez,
No.
Howard Sokol, Howard Sokol, don't see him here anymore. I'll go back to him Howard, if you unmute, you can chime in, do so. Otherwise, we're moving on to Joanne Brown.
No.
Carl. Carl Henry Cesar.
Yeah, did you guys hear me? No.
Got it.
Thank you.
Kashif Hussain. Kashif. I can't hear anything there. Leonie Francis Bryan.
Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Manzoor Hussain. Mansoor Hussain. Michael Cedillo.
No.
Nicole Levinson Angulo.
No. I vote no.
Okay, thank you. Nina Sabgir.
Oh, yes.
Saul Stein. Saul Stein. Could I have your vote, Saul? Steve Cohen.
I vote yes.
And Wakil Ahmad.
Yes.
Give me a minute.
I think Sokol has raised his hand again.
Who was it, Joe?
Sokol, Howard Sokol raised his hand.
Howard, do you have a vote, yes or no?
Sean, did you count the people who aren't in the participant list?
If you're not speaking.
No, I need Gail Smith.
Sean, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And Jonathan?
We have 13 yes votes, 10 no votes, 1 abstention, and 2 people we couldn't hear.
Sean, this is Jonathan. You didn't ask for my vote. I mean, obviously, I'm voting yes.
Sorry, on the phone, Jonathan, yep. That's 14 yes votes. Is there another?
You do have Bill Smith, Sean?
Yes. What, Gail?
No, I said yes.
Yes, I got that. You can only say yes once, Gail.
No, I know I couldn't hear you. There's a lot of static back and forth, so I wanted to make sure you heard me.
You have been counted, Gail.
Thank you.
Right now, we have 14 yes votes, 10 no votes, 1 abstention, 2 people I could not hear, Mansour Hussein and Saul. Oh, and Howard. 3 people we can't hear. But,
Okay.
and so we need somebody to decide what this means, because if you add the abstention and the 3 people we couldn't hear, if they were all no's, it would be a tie.
Sean, it's Howard, Mansour, and who?
Saul Stein.
Sean, I would to do this because it goes against my vote, but I think Howard is in the video trying to give a thumbs up. But we can't hear you, Howard.
He is in the video trying to give a thumbs up.
Okay, we're going to count that as a yes vote because that is typically what.
I care about the democratic process.
You are a good citizen.
Saul, do you hear us?
That would make the yeas have it, even if all other votes that we can't hear and the abstention were to count as no votes.
Okay, did we get Alvin Burke's vote?
Yes, we did.
Okay. All right, then. So that would mean that, well, as chair, I'm asking if anyone has any question about this that we've submitted to the borough president. Please forward your questions, your comments, your ideas to the board office. You can get them to Sean, preferably, I guess, by email. Sean, is that your preferred way of communicating this?
Yes, please send it to the info@CB14 Brooklyn email so Anya and I can both monitor. We'll then do a soft draft and bring it back out to the Public Safety Committee to do a final draft and send out to the board.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, board members, for this lively discussion. This is what it's all about, and much appreciated. We'll move on with the agenda at this time.
But Ed, I'm sorry. I do apologize for one thing. This is Saul Stein. I got cut off and been trying to get myself back on. I do vote yes as well.
Thank you, Saul. Thanks for the record.
Okay. So, report from Education, Libraries, and Cultural Affairs. I'm assuming then that there is no report because we.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. No report.
Yeah. Okay. So this would then move us to the public session. Sean have any comments been forwarded to us?
We have people who I think are on the call who signed pre-registered for the public session. The first one, I don't know if he's still on, is David Nussbaum. David, if you're here, unmute, and it's your turn for 3 minutes, no longer.
David, you're unmuted. Go. David, you're unmuted. Go ahead. David.
Okay, if David has stepped away, we'll go back to him if he steps back.
Hang on,
Sure.
David. Please don't do anything. Try to speak now. Nothing. I'm gonna make him a panelist for a few minutes. See if that works.
Okay.
Okay.
David, can you hear us now? No, nothing.
Okay, let's move on to the next registered speaker, and we'll come back to David.
The next registered speaker is Zainab Ahmad from DCA.
This is Zainab Ahmad from DCA, well, DCWP, I should say.
Sorry.
No worries. You know what? We're still kind of like getting used to it. So thank you again, first and foremost, CB14, really for having us present. And I'll be very brief and very quick because I know it's been a really long night. So just to give a quick overview, the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, our mission is to protect and enhance the daily economic lives of New Yorkers, to create thriving communities. And, as we know, we are, kind of like going through the phases of New York City reopening. So phase 1 was last week, and phase 2 was actually this morning, just to provide some updates on how our agency is handling these openings. As many of you know, we enforce a number of laws for consumers and workers. As far as businesses are concerned, we license over 75,000 businesses in New York City. Since the phase 2 went into place, the following industries are now allowed to resume. So this would include offices, in-store retail, real estate services, commercial building management, hair salons and barbershops, outdoor dining, retail, rental, repair and cleaning, real estate, vehicle sales, leases and rentals. Before I move on, I'm just going to let everyone know that I'm going to include all of the resources in a documentation in the chat box. So just in case folks want to take a look at it or want to share, please do so. And I'll also leave my contact information. With that being said, because it's summer now, there are a lot of restaurants who now have the opportunity for the Open Restaurants program, which means that well, just to give a quick little background, per the mayor's executive order on June 18th, certain laws and rules relating to sidewalk cafes have been suspended to administer the Open Restaurants program. So restaurants must seek permission through this program to place outdoor seating in front of their establishments on the sidewalks, including restaurants that have been licensed for unenclosed sidewalk cafes and small sidewalk cafes. And you can get more information at nyc.gov/openrestaurants. Okay, and I'm done.
That's all appreciated. And the information that you put into the box and email to us will be up on our website. And I'm just going to say, we'll do that for all of, there are some questions in the box, but rather than reading them off now, for those who are viewing on our YouTube channel, we'll post the information on our website as a follow-up. Our next registered speaker is Rule Minot from the Census.
Who is it, Sean? I'm sorry.
It's Rule R-U-E-L, Minot, M-I-N-O-T-T.
I don't see that name anywhere.
Okay. Then I'm going to just quickly jump back to David Nussbaum, who said that DOB has provided all sites with guidance regarding safe health practices. DOB will be visiting all job sites to ensure compliance. During the first month, no penalty will be issued, but afterward, fines can be up to $5,000. There's a great deal of information on the DOB websites, and then I'll always contact the community board if we can be helpful. Sorry, David, for the trouble you were having getting that information to us. I hope that was it. We have Emily King with us from Third Route. Is Emily still here to make her announcement?
Emily
King.
Don't see it.
Is Nyla Rosario here from the library?
Don't see it.
Then our last registered speaker is Keisha Daniels from
Hold on. Emily Kramer?
from Third Route.
I don't know. Let's see. Emily?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Emily. Are you from are you representing Third Route?
Yes, I am. Hello.
I'm so sorry. I messed up your last name. Please go ahead. What is your announcement?
That's totally fine. Thank you so much for welcoming me into this space, everybody. My name's Emily Kramer. I'm from Third Route Community Health Center. And we are, during this time and far into the future, going to be offering free programming for Black community members. And it's something we want to make sure that our wider community is aware of. I'm new to the community board and hope to be more involved in the future. So I don't know if you all know our organization, but we offer a number of programs on virtual platform right now, including yoga, herbal education, and several other healing modalities. So we are a community organization and want to make sure that those that are most marginalized have access at no cost. So I will put into the chat the best way to access free programming. And it is available indefinitely. So please contact us directly. If you have questions, you can email us at info@thirdroute. I'll put that also into the chat, info@thirdroute.org if you have any questions about this at all. And again, thank you for giving me the space. That's all the time I need.
Nice to meet you, Emily. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Keisha Daniels from Metro Plus here?
Hi, this is Carlene Farrier with Metro Plus.
Hi, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing us the few minutes just to update. We have been working virtually. We are slowly opening back to the public. In addition, we're able to connect with our communities. We've been working with some elected officials as well as some faith-based organizations and community-based organizations to assist with distribution of food in the community. What we've been providing are like the bags, hand sanitizers, etc., while the organizations provide the food and masks. We are available online in our virtual office. You can connect with our customer service department as well as our reps. Keisha Daniels is actually putting in the information in the chat box. Keisha is actually the event specialist for Brooklyn, and I'm one of the assistant directors of marketing. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, everybody. Unless Nyla Rosario is here, that concludes our pre-registered public session speakers.
I don't know who that is. Has a hand up?
Us as a board member.
No, I raised the hand for the vote. Thank you so much for asking.
Okay, please lower it. Thank you.
Okay, so then that concludes our public speaking period. At this time, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I thought nobody wanted to quit here.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nobody.
We stand adjourned at 7:27.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Everyone.
Good
Have a
night, everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy yourself.
Good night. Have a wonderful summer.